Let us get ready for the playing of the national anthem of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, which will be followed by an opening prayer. Let us pray. Praise be to you, Almighty God, Creator of the universe and all that is in it. We thank you, O Father, for the opportunity which you are giving us to increase our knowledge. May your divine grace enable us to work hard and use what we learn for the good of our fellow citizens. We pray that you will free us from selfishness, lust, greed, anger, and hatred. Warm our hearts with love, fill our minds with understanding, and strengthen our wills in the face of all difficulties. Help us, O Father, to make our beloved country of Trinidad and Tobago the kind of place you want it to be. A place where human dignity is respected, where equal rights are accorded to all citizens, where hard work is encouraged and rewarded, and where you, O God, reign supreme. Dr. the Honorable Michael Dowlat, Minister of Education, Mrs. Simone Williams, Permanent Secretary, Acting, Mr. Kishore Lachman, Permanent Secretary, Acting, Dr. Peter Smith, Chief Education Officer, Mrs. Kamini Bagelu, Director, Acting, Division of Educational Research and Evaluation, Dr. Carla Kronberg, Manager, Teacher Education, Performance and Professional Development Division, other directors, managers, and heads of departments at the Ministry of Education. Parents and guardians, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ministry of Education's webinar entitled Beyond the Sea. The Ministry of Education acknowledges that the Secondary Entrance Assessment Results Day is a significant milestone and is committed to helping parents and guardians and students navigate this event. We are going to guide you through exactly how to access and understand the results, what is needed for secondary school registration, how to effectively manage the emotional wraparound of post-S.E.A stress, and most importantly, how to pave a smooth, confident path for our students as they transition into secondary school. To officially open today's session, we are honored to welcome a leader whose vision and commitment continues to drive innovation across our nation's schools. It is therefore my privilege to welcome Dr. Peter Smith, Chief Education Officer at the Ministry of Education, to deliver opening remarks. CEO, we welcome you.
Dr. the Honorable Michael Dowlat, Minister of Education, Mrs. Simone Williams, Permanent Secretary, Acting, Mr. Kishore Lachman, Permanent Secretary, Acting, Mrs. Kamini Bagalu, Director, Acting, Division of Educational Research and Evaluation, Dr. Carla Kronberg, Manager, Teacher Education, Performance and Professional Development Division, other directors, managers, heads of department at the Ministry of Education, educators, parents, guardians, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. On behalf of the Ministry of Education, It is my distinct pleasure to welcome you to this session as our focus shifts to a critical milestone in our national landscape. The transition from primary school to the secondary school system is an essential developmental phase. It represents a shift in environment, a broadening of the academic curriculum, and an evolution in social and emotional dynamics for our young people. Managing this shift successfully requires an intentional, coordinated approach among our technical teams, our schools, and the home. We know that waiting for and finally receiving the secondary entrance assessment results can be a very emotive time for every family. When the results are released, it is natural to focus on the numbers and the school placement. But we want to encourage everyone to see this moment as the start of a brand new chapter. No matter what the results say, every single child has secured a place in our secondary school system and a path to a bright future. This webinar is designed to show you exactly how to test these results easily online and how to understand the information you receive without any extra stress. As parents and guardians, your role right now is more important than ever. Your children look to you to see how to react, and your calm guidance, love, and reassurance will be their biggest support system during this change. By creating a safe space at home where they can express their feelings, and by focusing on their efforts rather than their grades, you help them build the confidence they need to face a new environment. This evening, we will share simple, everyday ways you can support your child's well being and help them look forward to their new school with excitement. Over the course of this session, our technical teams, and specialist panels will guide you through three critical focus areas, beginning with administrative clarity by outlining the formal administrative processes for retrieving and understanding the data generated by the placement system. We will then address psychological well being by introducing proactive coping mechanisms, structured interventions, and mental health tools designed by our student support services team to reduce situational anxiety in the home. Finally, we will focus on institutional readiness by outlining the definitive orientation steps that educators and families must implement to prepare students for the adjustments of the secondary school system. We are deeply encouraged by your presence as it confirms that the duty of guiding our youth through systemic milestones is a shared national responsibility. I encourage you to ask your questions and engage fully with the material presented. Once again, thank you for your presence.
A special thanks to Dr. Peter Smith, Chief Education Officer, for that warm welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct honor to now introduce a leader who is instrumental in shaping the future of education in our country. The foundation of our education system is strengthened by his leadership and vision. Dr. the Honorable Michael Dowlat, Minister of Education, remains deeply committed to advancing a student centered and holistic approach to education. Rooted in a spiritually enriching and values based environment, his leadership is driven by the belief that true education nurtures both academic excellence and moral character. Guided by this philosophy, he continues to dedicate his efforts to the ongoing transformation of Trinidad and Tobago's education system, one that is inclusive, future ready, and designed to empower every learner to thrive in an increasingly dynamic and globalized world. He plays a pivotal role in driving the strategic national development plan, ensuring that the education system is inclusive, equitable, and high performing. Please join me in welcoming Dr. the Honorable Michael Dowlat, Minister of Education, to address us.
Simone Williams, Permanent Secretary Acting, Dr. Peter Smith, Chief Education Officer, Parents and Guardians, and most importantly, our transitioning students watching our digital platforms. Ladies and gentlemen, good day. As we stand on the threshold of another important milestone in the educational journey of thousands of our nation's children, today's webinar is aptly titled Beyond the S.E.A. because this is precisely where our focus must now be. While the release of examination results is undoubtedly important, it is not the destination. It is merely one step in a much larger and more exciting journey of learning and personal growth. I know that for many families, this period can be accompanied by feelings of anticipation, uncertainty, and even anxiety. Parents want the very best for their children, and students naturally wonder what lies ahead. These emotions are entirely understandable. That is why the Ministry of Education has deliberately created opportunities such as this webinar to ease anxiety, provide accurate information, and equip our education community with practical and actionable strategies that will help every family navigate the transition with confidence. We will discuss how to access and properly interpret your S.E.A results through our digital platforms, how to effectively manage the stress and emotions that often accompany this period, and the practical steps that parents and students can take to ensure a smooth and successful transition into secondary school. Over the past several months, the ministry has intensified its efforts to support parents and guardians in preparing for this important stage through sensitization initiatives, digital information campaigns, school-based engagements, and continuous stakeholder communication. We have sought to ensure that families are informed, empowered, and equipped to make the best decisions for their children. I know that many of you are already familiar with these initiatives. However, for those who may have missed them, I would like to briefly highlight some of the key programs that have been introduced to support your child's educational journey as we move beyond the S.E.A and towards the exciting opportunities that lie ahead. The School Supplies and Book Grant Initiative continues to provide critical financial assistance to low-income families at both the primary and secondary levels, helping to ease the burden of educational expenses and ensuring that every child has access to the resources they need to succeed. The enhanced continuous assessment component, what is referred to as CAC, represents an important evolution in how we measure student achievement. By complementing traditional exams, the CAC provides a more holistic picture of student learning and creates opportunities for children to demonstrate their knowledge, skills, and competencies in diverse and meaningful ways. AI-enabled digital learning resources for Form 1 students signal a transformative shift in how teaching and learning are experienced in our schools. These innovative tools are designed to personalize learning, foster engagement, and better prepare our students for success in an increasingly digital world. Supporting this transformation is the Learning Without Limits, a laptop for every child initiative, through which the government continues to place essential learning devices directly in the hands of our students, ensuring that access to technology is no longer a privilege for some, but an opportunity available to all. These are just some of the initiatives currently underway to provide essential support during the period of transition. With the strong support of the Government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the Ministry of Education continues to advance a forward-looking education agenda, focusing on equipping and empowering 21st century learners. As your child transitions into secondary school, the ministry will continue to provide clear guidance and support throughout every stage of their educational journey. Whether it is information regarding registration, orientation, student support services, curriculum matters, or opportunities for holistic development. We are committed to ensuring that no family feels alone or uncertain during this transition. Parents and guardians, I encourage you to remember that your child's value and potential cannot be measured solely by an examination result or by the name of a school placement. Every child possesses unique talents, abilities, and aspirations. Success is not determined by where one begins, but by the attitude, resilience, and commitment one brings to the opportunities ahead. The Ministry of Education remains steadfast in its mission to create an education system that supports every learner, values every child, and ensures that every student has the opportunity to succeed. May this webinar provide reassurance, practical guidance, and renewed confidence as we move together beyond the S.E.A. and towards even greater possibilities. I thank you, and may God bless us all.
Special thanks to Dr. the Honorable Michael Dowlat, Minister of Education, for his powerful and inspiring words, and for positioning the objectives of today's session within the broader objectives of the Ministry of Education and challenging us to think critically about the information that will be shared today. Participants, I am Tisha Laris-Sagam, Teacher Education Specialist here at the Ministry of Education. Thank you for joining us for today's session. My role is to support the smooth flow, guide our discussions, and ensure that your questions are addressed. Our goal is to create an informative and enriching learning experience. Before we begin, I invite you to take a moment to review the agenda. It will serve as your guide throughout and help you follow along with today's discussion. Before we commence the presentation, let us go through the online webinar netiquette guidelines, and I will remind you of how to effectively use the features of Microsoft Teams and other official Ministry of Education social media platforms. Please pay attention to any guidelines shared during the webinar, including how and when to ask questions. Use the comment section to ask relevant questions or to provide feedback. Keep your questions clear, concise, and relevant to the topic. Avoid spamming or posting duplicate questions. Please remain respectful in all interactions. Let us maintain a positive and professional environment. To ensure your questions are answered using Microsoft Teams and other designated Ministry of Education social media platforms, to use the live stream platform, please locate the comment section, click the bar where it says comment as, type your question clearly and hit send. Our Q&A moderators will review your questions and either respond directly in the comment section or forward it to our presenters. We do have some participants joining us on the Microsoft Teams platform. To use the Q&A feature on Microsoft Teams, locate the Q&A icon in the toolbar, click it to open the chat panel. Type your question clearly and hit send. Our Q&A moderators will review your question and either respond directly in the chat or forward it to our presenters. We do thank you for adhering to these guidelines, which will help us ensure a smooth and productive session. To guide us through the specific guidelines and key requirements, it is now my pleasure to introduce our presenters. We have Mrs. Kamini Bagelu, Director Acting from the Division of Educational Research and Evaluation. We have present school supervisors from the Schools Supervision and Management Division, Mr. Chris Metiver, School Supervisor 2 from the St. George East Education District, and Mr. Kenny Edwin, School Supervisor 2 from the Victoria Education District. Mr. Andy Matamora, School Guidance Counselor from the Student Support Services Division. We also have a live demonstration from Mr. Ansari Khan, Information System Support Specialist from the Information and Communications Technology Division. A very warm welcome to all our presenters.
Hi, good day, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today, I'll be walking you through the process of obtaining your S.E.A results for 2026. We'll start off by heading over to the Ministry of Education's corporate website at moe.gov.tt. Here, you'll be able to find all the necessary information, as well as a link to the S.E.A results portal over here. So let's click on this. Here, we'll land at the S.E.A results portal. We can also navigate to the link directly at searesults.moe.gov.tt. Here, we can see a guide at the top, the information booklet, and various forms that we will cover shortly. First, we can go to login by clicking the login button. Next, we will see a preview of the admission slip. We'll be using this admission slip to fill in the data here to log in and access our results. First, let's enter the student ID as it appears on the student admission slip. Next, we will enter the date of birth as it appears on the admission slip. So enter the date, the month, and the year. Finally, we'll enter the admission number on the slip. Then we will click the login button. We'll be presented with a notice that access to the information contained in this portal is restricted to the legal guardians of the S.E.A candidates. We will accept this notice and continue. Here we are logged in and presented with some basic information. We are prompted here to revise the information booklet if we have any of these questions. But for now, we can just simply access the results by clicking View Results. And then we are presented with the Student Performance Report. Here we can see the students' information for 2026, the center that they took the exam at, their primary school, the student scores, the national mean scores, the general performance, the secondary school that they were assigned to, as well as the registration date for that school. Finally, we will see a QR code at the bottom that, when scanned, will allow persons to verify that results. We can go at the top and click the download button to save a copy of that PDF, which we can now print out ourselves. And finally, that will be it for receiving our results. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, we will take a look at understanding the S.E.A results. Now, I want to go over the criteria for placement in secondary schools. Students are assigned to secondary schools according to the following criteria. Students' performance by order of merit. And what does this mean? So students are placed utilizing what we call the weighted composite score. And when we look a little further at the performance report, I would explain the composite score. However, when the composite score of all of the students are collated, order of merit listing is created before placement actually begins. So therefore, students who are at the top of the merit listing, they also have the best opportunity in terms of getting into certain schools. Now, I want parents to also bear in mind, whereas we may look at some scores and we may believe that the scores are very high, we also have to remember that placement is also dependent on the number of spaces at the school. Okay, so therefore we have limited spaces at specific schools. So therefore, when we look at the placement, it is affected by your order on the merit listing. Now, secondly, we also look at parents' choices. Parents were allotted 4 choices to select for each candidate, and how the system works. The computer first tries the child for their first choice. If at the point that the computer comes down the merit listing and the computer tries the child for the first choice and the first choice is already filled, what happens is that the computer will go to the child's second choice to determine if there are still spaces in the school. Because we always described the placement process as a fill-in process. Because as the computer comes down the merit listing, dependent on the choices of the parents, students start to fill into the respective schools. And the same thing happens. Let's suppose the computer reaches a particular child and their first choice is filled, their second choice is filled, it goes to their third choice. And if the computer reaches another child and their first 3 choices are filled, it goes to their 4 choices. And what happens if the 4 choices are filled? This is what we determine and we call a child a fallout child. And what the computer does, it uses the child's address, and we have community schools for different addresses, and students will normally be placed in one of the community schools. Now, sometimes what you may find is that children are not placed in their community. It's because at the point when the computer may have reached a particular child, that all of the community schools are already filled, then the computer will look for the next nearest school in which the child can be placed. Now, there's also a criteria that is utilized. We call that the principal's 20% selection. And this is afforded to the denominational secondary schools, whereby 20% of the intake capacity, the principals are given that opportunity to select that amount of students. So for example, let's suppose a school has an intake capacity of 105. The principal selection will just be 21 students out of the 105. And how does this impact placement? I just want parents to bear in mind that sometimes when results are released, we may see that some students get into some schools with some lower scores as compared to your child who didn't get in. And we often try to, make sense of it. Why was my child not selected as opposed to another child? And you may want to consider that if it is a denominational school or a board school, this is because of the principal's 20% selection. Now, gender. How does gender impact placement? Now, at our mixed gender schools, the male and female spaces are actually divided into 50-50. So if I have a school with a capacity of 120, 60 spaces will be for males, 60 spaces for females. So let's suppose the computer is filling a particular school and 100 spaces out of the 120 are filled, but that 100 space is also the 60th female. We have 20 spaces remaining, which will only be given to males. So therefore, there may be females who would have higher scores than these males who were not able to get into that particular school. And this is because of the spaces allocated to gender. Now, residence. Residence is only utilized at the point where a child falls out of their 4 choices. And I would have explained how the computer uses the child's community to determine a school choice then. And finally, we have multiple birth being utilized as a criteria. So if we do have students who are part of a multiple birth, what the computer does is wherever the first part of the multiple birth is placed, once the students would have had the same choices, and if they were of the same gender, the second part or the third part of the multiple birth will be pulled into the same school. So therefore, this also explains instances where we may see some students with a lower score in a particular schools is because of multiple births. Now let's take a closer look at the performance report. And this is the results that will be downloaded. You were just given a demonstration of how to access the performance report. But let us take a closer look at understanding what the performance report contains. Now, it does have the child's personal information at the top. It will have their name and their birth date and so on. But I want us to take a closer look at the table which actually provides the child's score in mathematics, English language arts, and the English language arts writing. Now, many parents, you are aware that the mathematics examination, the total score was 75. However, the score that you will see on the performance report, it is out of 100. Similarly, for English language arts, the paper was out of 64, and you will see a score out of 100. Then you will see the English language arts writing score, which was out of 20. Now, in the second column, you will see the national mean score for each subject. And these mean scores for the maths and language arts is out of 100, whereas the mean score for the English language arts writing or the essay is out of 20. And then you are going to see the student scores in the third column for each subject area. Now, if you look to the bottom of the first table and we go down further to the bottom, what you are going to see is the child's composite score. And now the composite score is what is utilized for placement of the candidates. And how do we arrive at that composite score? Now, the raw scores for the mathematics, language arts, and the S.E.A, they are first converted to what we call standard scores. And then these standard scores are weighted, whereby we utilize 100% of the mathematics, 60% of the language arts, 40% of the ELA writing. We add these three scores together to give us the weighted composite score, and this is what is utilized to place the candidates in a particular school. Now, below the table, you will see where the secondary school is assigned to a candidate. And also there is the registration date. Now, some performance reports will have to resit S.E.A in 2027 only. Now, I want parents to bear in mind, and persons may ask, why is my child required to sit the S.E.A, resit the S.E.A in 2027? And this is because that the child would have scored less 30% or less in the 2026 S.E.A, and they were born after the 31st of August 2013. They will be required to resit the S.E.A in 2027 only. And I want to emphasize that point, that you cannot skip a year and decide to write the S.E.A at another time, that you are only allowed to resit in 2027. Now, some parents may ask that, well, I saw some other students with similar scores, but they were placed in a secondary school. Now, there are candidates who would have scored 30%. However, their date of birth, they were born before August 31st, 2013, and these were the candidates who had to be placed at a secondary school. So therefore, we need to bear in mind that when we are comparing scores as well, that this is why we may see some students with the same score being placed in a secondary school, but it's because of their age. Now, parents, if you are not satisfied with your child's assigned school, and even if you are not satisfied with the scores on the performance report, one of the ways that you can actually get redress is by looking to access a S.E.A review. Now, review of scripts is done by the Caribbean Examination Council in Barbados, and the review actually involves an actual remarking of the child's script. Now, the reviews, there is a process in terms of applying for a review. We do have the S.E.A review forms, and the results received from CXC will be processed by the Ministry of Education and will be made available at the education district offices on a date to be announced. So therefore, parents, please bear in mind that the scripts have to be remarked, and it does take some time, but all results will be sent to the district offices. Now let's take a look at the S.E.A review form. So a request for a review form on the S.E.A portal, parents, you can access that form, or if you do not have access to a computer to download the form, you can visit the education district office nearest to you to actually get access to the form. But there is a time limit in terms of applying for a review. You do have a 5-day period from the release of the results, so therefore, till July 10th, you can apply for a review. Now, of course, there is a fee that is attached, and candidates there is a fee attached at 25 Bayesian or a US equivalent per subject. You can review one subject, you can review two, you can review all 3 subjects. But what I want persons to bear in mind, that when applying for a review, there are certain outcomes to the review. And let's look at the outcomes of an S.E.A review. Now, an S.E.A review could result in one of the following. It can result in no change in scores, therefore school assigned remains the same. It can also result in a change in scores, but the scores change is insufficient to change the school assigned. And then we also have thirdly, where the change in scores result in a change of school assigned. Please bear in mind that application for a review does not mean that you are automatically going to receive an increase in scores. Please also bear in mind that the outcome of this review is final, which means that there are no means in terms of applying for a second review, because once the Caribbean Examination Council remarks the scripts where they utilize their chief examiners, there is no other means of getting a second review. So these outcomes are final. So persons can obtain a bank draft payable to the Registrar Caribbean Examinations Council from any commercial bank, and you can attach this to the request for review form in addition to a copy of the child's birth paper, and these must be submitted as I indicated by July 10th. Now, parents, it's very important that you actually read the S.E.A information booklet, and this booklet, you can find it on the S.E.A portal along with these S.E.A forms. And there are many of the questions that you will have in mind that they are contained and they are answered at length in the information booklet. So I want to urge everyone to please go online and download the S.E.A information booklet, and please read through all of the information that is given. It will help you to understand the S.E.A placement process better, and it will also guide you in terms of your next step after the results have been released.
Good afternoon, everyone. We'll continue the presentation on understanding the next steps, guidance for parents and students. Accessing the S.E.A online portal. To access the S.E.A online portal, parents and guardians will need the following information, which can be found on the S.E.A admission slip. This was a slip that students would have gotten when they wrote the S.E.A exam They will need the student's date of birth, the student number, and the admissions number. And all of those would have been shown earlier on when Mr. Khan gave an example of the admission slip and showed everyone where that data could be identified and located. Parents or guardians who are unable to access the results online may contact your child's school principal during working hours on Friday, the 3rd of July, 2026 for assistance. The results will be released tomorrow evening at 11 p.m. So the following day, please, if you need any assistance, feel free to access that assistance via the school principal. Additionally, candidates from government and government-assisted schools who misplace their S.E.A admission slips should contact the principal of the student school to request a copy. What I could tell you is that copies of the admission slips were sent to all primary schools throughout the entire country of Trinidad and Tobago. So feel free to contact the principal if you lost the admission slip or if you misplaced the admission slip. Private candidates who misplace their S.E.A admission slips are required to email a detailed request for a replacement S.E.A admission slip to the ministry's examinations department at exam.section@moe.gov.tt or call 622-2181 extensions 1100 to 1114. And as Ms. Baglu indicated, for answers to frequently asked questions, please refer to the student's S.E.A booklet available and the website is indicated there. And this booklet is updated on an annual basis and it has been updated the year 2026. Now, resitting the S.E.A. I know Ms. Baglu mentioned this, but we need to explain. Students who wrote their S.E.A in 2026 and scored 30% or less and who were born after August 31st, 2013 are required to resit the S.E.A in 2027. Please note that a resit is automatic and compulsory. Principals as instructional leaders ensure that these students benefit from remedial programs so that they would be better prepared for entry into secondary school in 2027. Students who wrote S.E.A 2026 and scored 30% or less and were born on or before August 31st, 2013 have been placed in junior life or pre-vocational centers and selected secondary schools. Now, there's a difference with respect to resitting and repeating. Now, repeating the S.E.A. To repeat the S.E.A, the child must have a date of birth falling within the period September 1st, 2013 to August 31st, 2015. Now, with respect to resitting, as was mentioned already, if the child scores 30% or less and was born within that period identified, it's compulsory, it's automatic that the child has to resit. If a parent wishes for their child to repeat the S.E.A, the parent can choose to have the child either repeat at the same primary school if spaces are available, they can repeat at another primary school if spaces are available, or they can repeat as a private candidate. Now, repeating is an option. However, the child must fulfill the required criteria. And what is very important is that a child who wrote S.E.A in 2026 and wishes to repeat must do so in 2027 only. And that's why only is in caps. The S.E.A cannot be repeated in any other year. So if the child wrote the S.E.A this year, the S.E.A must be repeated next year because a child is only allowed 2 sittings of the S.E.A, and that's the maximum. The registration process. All students whose names appear on the online placement list are to be registered during the specified period at the secondary school to which they have been assigned. To complete the registration, the following documents must be produced at the time of registration at the school to which the student has been assigned. The student's birth certificate, proof of citizenship if the student is a national born outside of Trinidad and Tobago, and also a valid student permit and any other relevant document if the student is a non-national. An affidavit is required where, one, there is no name on the birth certificate, or secondly, the name on the birth certificate does not correspond with that on the results listing. If you need any additional information, parents and guardians should be advised to contact the secondary schools to which their children have been assigned in terms of the registration process or with respect to dates, because the registration dates would have been included in the placement, that what you would get with the results, but there are some schools with more than one date. So if there is more than one date, please feel free to contact the secondary school to which your child has been assigned.
So good afternoon, everyone. We continue with the presentation regarding transfer requests. A transfer request or request for transfer must be completed on the day of registration at the assigned secondary school, which means a student must be registered at the assigned secondary school before applying for a transfer. On the day of registration, complete a request for transfer form, which is available at the secondary school to which your child has been assigned. The forms must be signed by the principal of the secondary school, and a tear of slip must be stamped and returned to you, the parent or the guardian. Transfers are not guaranteed. It depends on the availability of places in the secondary school that has been requested. Note that all secondary schools have received their full quota of students during the placement process. The criteria used for transfers are as follows: student performance or merit, change of address, medical conditions that must be verified by a medical certificate and school records, or special needs that must be supported by the relevant documentation. Release of transfer results will be available at the respective education district offices on a date to be announced. Information on approved transfers will be submitted to the principal of the school to which the student has been assigned initially and to the school to which the student is now assigned. Parents and guardians, you are expected to check on your transfer request at the school where the child was originally assigned or at the district office. The first release of approvals of transfers will be made available from August 14th, 2026. This is an example of the form. As you can see, you need to fill in the child's name, the child's composite score, the S.E.A candidate number or the PIN number, the school, two schools that you are requesting, the parent's name or guardian's name, the address, telephone contact, which is very important so that the ministry will be able to contact you. That contact must be either a work contact or home contact. Of course, the first choice of your discretion, and the second choice, school. The reason for the request must be indicated, and of course, the form must be signed and submitted. Note well the acknowledgement slip that you will be provided with that must be stamped and signed by the school principal. The parent declaration form. Parents of students who do not intend to accept places at the secondary school to which their children have been assigned must complete the parent declaration form at the primary school or secondary school assigned. Parents are to be reminded that the declaration form is not a transfer request. All students must report for classes during the first week of term 1. They must complete a declaration form or communicate to the principal the reason for the student's absence during the first week. It must be noted at this point that the purpose of completing a declaration form indicates to the ministry that the parent would have made 2 decisions. Either the decision for the child to repeat at the school to which he or she was previously assigned, or if the intention is for the child to be assigned at a private school. Failure, however, to provide this information to the principal will be interpreted as non-acceptance of the place, and consequently, the student's place may be assigned to another student. This is an example of the declaration form, and you can see that there are 2 reasons for completing a declaration form, as indicated earlier in my discourse. One is that you are absolutely not taking up the place in the school assigned, that is the secondary school assigned. Or secondly, if there is a delay in terms of the school, that there's a delay in terms of the child attending the school at the particular registration time. So once again, if you are not taking up the place, or if there is some delay with regards to the child attending the secondary school.
Good afternoon, everyone. Now it's time to consider what we do as the results are about to come out. We have been holding our breath forever, and here we are. It is almost here, the penultimate day before the results has been released. We are feeling the pressure, we are feeling the nerves. Some of us are beginning to sweat. You wonder what will happen. Some of us are wondering and hearing voices. What will our friends say about the school to which we are assigned? Some of us will be happy, some of us will be sad, some of us will be disappointed, some of us will be jumping for joy, some will be sitting in despair. But one must consider whose thoughts are these. These are the thoughts and questions that parents may have. They are also the thoughts and questions that students may have. Now, I want us to, before the results come out, before you access the portal, parents, I want you to perform an emotional regulation activity. In other words, I just want you to stop. And this is an acronym for stopping. Of course, take a deep breath, perhaps a few deep breaths. Observe your feelings. Kind of sit for a while and note and accept and appreciate what you are feeling, and then you can proceed. And we advise that you proceed wisely. So this is what should happen. And I advise parents to have a party before the day. Because what we want to celebrate, as we heard earlier, is not just the child's performance or the result, but the effort that went into it. As parents, you have invested a lot of time, energy, resources, prayers, I know, in your child's preparation. Believe it or not, some parents may not appreciate this, but your child have invested a lot of time, energy, sleepless nights, tears that I've seen firsthand in their preparation for the S.E.A. What should not happen, parents, is that you berate the child. is that you start saying to the child, if you had studied more, I know you have potential and you could have done it if only you put in a little more work. This should not happen. Again, you want to acknowledge the effort that the child has made. You want to celebrate what has happened. Now, when I see the results, what should my first reaction be? Firstly, parents, regardless of what it is, I want you to take a deep breath. Breathe. Remain calm. One, congratulate your child. Review the scores. Hug and kiss your child. You want to affirm the child more than anything else. Positive words is the best way to do so. So you affirm the child with positive words. No words of shoulda, woulda. Let your child know how much you love them. That's imperative. Even if the results were unexpected, good or bad, you want to acknowledge the child's effort. You want to affirm them positively, and you want to listen to them. Yes, you want to listen to the child. So allow your child to express his or her feelings. Some may be negative, some may be positive. At this time, your child may have very, very, very negative, providing they didn't do as well as they could. Very negative feedback and so on. The narrative might be very negative. You want to guide them in a positive direction. If the child is saying that I'm a loser, I know I would never do good, that kind of thing, you want to regulate that, bring them back to a positive place where you affirm them. It is their effort and not necessarily results. Certainly it's not the school that they pass for, because you would have heard there's so many variables going into the selection and placement of students that it's totally out of the control of your child. So give sufficient time for your child to speak. Sit, listen, and love. You come up with a plan. Keep your child's mental, emotional well-being in focus. It is not about you. It is not about your ego. It's not about your cousin down the road. It's about the well-being of your child. Discuss with your child what happens next. What is our next step? If you are disappointed, breathe. I suggest that you call someone, and if you have to vent, you take your husband or wife aside and you cry it out, you get it out of you, call a friend and you talk it out, but don't put that on your child. So before you speak, do not let those words of disappointment be the first words that you utter to your child. They are going to remember it for life. People seldom remember what you say, but they always remember what you made them feel. And if in that moment you made them feel as though they're the worst thing on earth, then we are going to have a problem. So choose carefully the words you use to express your disappointment. That's okay, that's legitimate. There may be feelings of shame, I get that, among the extended family, the community. The child may not have been placed in your alma mater. All of that are real possibilities. But take time to process your own feelings. And most importantly, remember it's your child's well-being at stake, and you do not want to put that on them. Your child may or may not feel disappointed. Sometimes children simply accept it initially, when it's okay, at least I'm going to a school. Some are some have total meltdown. So your child may or may not be disappointed. If he or she initially feels sad at the assignment, they may come to terms with it on their own. And if that happens, and it happens within short order, then we are okay. Please keep in mind and support your son and daughter as you would have done in the past. If you have not given that support, be there for them. They may accept it and settle. If they don't accept it, and if they don't settle, if they're crying and their sadness extends beyond a day or two, a week, that may be a time to seek professional help. So you may contact the student support services or your own private therapist or so. All right. As regards reward, yes, reward your child, reward your child. However, reward should match the result or the effort that your son or daughter may have put in. You do not want to go overboard. Let the the reward be appropriate to the effort. You don't probably want to buy, I don't know what it is. You would know and be guided accordingly, but let it match. Remember, this is just the first step in your child's academic development, the first little treader, if you will. So a good session is to make an investment in the child's future, maybe give money towards something that's going to benefit their educational future. So some positive considerations to be made. I would suggest that you spend time with your child. There's nothing more valuable to a child than a parent spending time with them. So take some time away from work if you can. Enjoy a couple of days. I know how challenging that could be, but you may want to take a couple of days. Maybe you want some downtime. Parents, you have been going through a tremendous amount of stress yourself. You want to give yourself some time to wake up late, avoid the traffic, just to breathe, just to enjoy the sun with your son or daughter, just for a moment. Back to reality, however, because you need to ready them for secondary school. And you would have been on social media, and some of us could appreciate the dynamics of secondary school. Your child has to be ready for this adventure, if you will. So in readying them for secondary school, please know that readiness means more than just academics. Students should be prepared, of course, academically. They should be prepared emotionally, socially, behaviorally, and organizationally. The change can be intense, it can be dramatic for some, especially for those who have been pampered a bit. The reality can be daunting. Readiness matters because students who are ready are more likely to attend school regularly, build friendships, which for some can be quite challenging. They can handle challenges more effectively, participate confidently, and achieve, of course, academically. So readiness today influences opportunities tomorrow. So some skills that they're going to need in their secondary school career. One is time management, and this is big because now they have to manage timetables and so on that they didn't have to do before. So time management is critical. Extra responsibility. They're going to be handling more money. They're going to be handling things like transportation and so on their own, which they perhaps didn't have to do. Respect, because there are now several levels in the secondary hierarchy that they are going to have to be aware of. Communication, problem solving. Parents, we need to just let them know and learn how to figure out things on their own, learn self-control and perseverance. These skills are, of course, critical for their academic development. So I would suggest that during the vacation that you don't just abandon, but you prepare them and ready them. So have a daily reading, a time where they read daily. They practice their math. Yes, practice their math, because there's this phenomenon of students doing extremely well at S.E.A and then crashing in Form 1 because they forgot everything as they played through the vacation. So practice math. Develop independence. Parents give them little allowances so that they practice how to budget and manage their monies during the vacation period. Take them through the school route so they learn the school route so it's not a shock to them. Improve their organizational skills, monitor how they take care of their room and so on, how they pack their books. So you build both independence and organizational skills. Have them participate in sports or join a club, be part of a group. And certainly, parents, please maintain healthy sleep habits. Don't let them over the holidays now just go to bed whenever, but manage them. In other words, prepare them for the day. Don't wait until school is about to reopen and then say go to bed. Get them in the habit now, as it takes time to build good habits. And lastly, I want to say, parents, for this vacation period, have fun. They would have sacrificed, they would have given, just have fun. Play games, do country tours, go to the beach, spend time with the family. Just have fun. Please spend time with them. There are many, many ways that parents can spend time together, and it will be totally I will do myself a disservice if I don't say, please put away the devices for some time and just spend time together.
Thank you to our presenters for your informative and enlightening presentation. Participants, having heard the presentation, the floor is now open to your questions. Please type your questions in the Q&A section of the Microsoft Teams platform or in the comment section of the Ministry of Education's Facebook live stream. Our moderators will ensure your questions are addressed in an organized manner. We do have a full panel from the Ministry of Education to answer your questions and address any concerns that you may have. There are several questions already placed in the chat of both platforms for our panelists. So, if a parent or guardian misplaced the S.E.A admission slip, how can they get a copy of this document? And please also explain the process for private candidates.
Thank you for that question. So if a parent or guardian misplaced their admission slip, all they need to do, contact the primary school to which the child is attending at this point in time. Duplicate admission slips were sent to all primary schools. The principals are in possession of those at this point, so they will get a duplicate copy. For the private schools, parents are requested to contact the examination section of the Ministry of Education. The information will be posted, or it has been posted in the S.E.A information booklet. And just contact the Education Ministry at examination sections, and you will also get a duplicate copy there.
Thank you, Mr. Kenny Edwin. How can a parent make a query about the placement if they believe the child has been zoned, or if they just want to generally query the results on the slip?
Okay, so thank you very much for that question. So parents can query scores, and we did actually indicate there's a process whereby we utilize S.E.A reviews of scores. However, if you want to query placement, you will have to wait until the reviews process has been completed, and persons can actually write and access it through a freedom of information to determine, if you want to query your child's place.
Now, parents are asking, how can they access the review form and when is the deadline for querying a review?
So the reviews forms can be accessed online in the S.E.A portal section, or it can also be accessed via the Education District offices. We do have a 5-day period in which persons can apply for a review, and this time limit has been given till July the 10th, 2026.
In applying for a transfer from one secondary school to another, can this process be re-explained for our parents?
Thank you very much for that question. If you are interested in applying for a transfer, the transfer application must be done on the day of registration at the school to which the child has been assigned. Once that transfer form is completed there, the principal of the school will sign the form and would also give you a tear-off slip with the 2 schools that you applied for. The principal will sign that slip and also stamp it as having seen it and present it to you. That form is then forwarded to the Ministry of Education, and a transfer committee will then deliberate on the reasons and the purpose for the transfer. And should there be a space, then it may be entertained. However, transfers are not guaranteed and only on the basis of available spaces. I hope that clarifies things.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chris Mative, for your response. On when parents are accessing the results on the S.E.A portal, a few details were mentioned, a bit of information needed to log in. What is that information that parents need in order to log in to access the results on the portal?
That's a good question. The parents would need the student's birth certificate PIN number or the parent PIN number that is on the admission slip, the birth date on the admission slip, as well as the admission center number on the admission slip.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ansari Khan, ICT. As I have you on, for parents who may be attempting to log in at this time before the official release date and time, will they get an error message of some sort? Can we relieve the anxiety of some of our parents who are seeing a message, these credentials do not match our records, is being received by some? Is this message a cause for concern?
No, there's no cause for concern at the moment. Up until the point of release at 11 p.m. tomorrow, they will receive that message until then.
Thank you, Mr. Khan. Are children's results being posted publicly this year?
So at the point of registration, parents would have indicated whether or not they would want their child's results to be published, and only those who would have indicated that they want their students' S.E.A results to be published, those will be published in the media.
For parents seeking an application for a transfer, if they do not get through on the first attempt, can they make another attempt to reapply for a transfer? And how long after can this application be processed?
As indicated earlier, transfers are only successful based on the availability of spaces at the particular school that the parent is interested in. However, after completion in Form 1, the parent is free to apply for a transfer again in Form 2 and so on until maybe some level of success is achieved. But once again, we need to note that the success of a transfer is based on the availability of spaces at the particular school that is being requested.
Can the differentiation be made again between resit and repeat for parents? And what scores determine a repeat or a resit?
Thank you for that question. Good afternoon again. So in terms of a resit, there are certain criteria that is used. So students who were born after August 31st, 2013, and whose composite standard score was equal to 30% or less in 2026 will be required to resit their S.E.A in 2027. Note that the S.E.A cannot be written in any other year. Now, the resit is automatic. So as indicated, if the child gets 30% or less and falls within that age, on the 13 years or over, the child will be 13 years or under, sorry, the child will be requested to resit. The repeat is quite different. Now, a parent may exercise an option if the child falls within and has a date of birth fallen within the period September 1st, 2013 to August 31st, 2015, they could exercise the option of possibly having that child repeat the exam. It doesn't mean that the child wasn't placed in a secondary school. The child would have been assigned to a secondary school, and possibly the parent is not pleased with the secondary school to which the child has been assigned. So if the date of birth falls within that period, they can exercise the option to repeat. However, it must be made quite clear. Repeating the exam is based on the availability of spaces at the school to which the primary school to which this child is presently at. It's not automatic. If there are no spaces, a principal could indicate that they cannot accept the child back into standard 5. So the child is free to repeat at another school if spaces are available, or the child could repeat as a private candidate at a private school. Now, it must be reiterated that a child who wrote this year and wishes to repeat can only do so next year in 2027. The child cannot skip a year and choose to repeat the exam in 2028.
Thank you very much, Mr. Edwin. Does the order of merit list override the principal's 20% selection in placement?
Okay, so thank you very much for that question. And let me explain what happens with the 80% and the 20%. Now, the 20% is only selected after the 80% is filled in a particular denominational school. So therefore, when a principal comes in to select the 20%, they do not see the students who have already been placed on the 80%. So there are students who would have been high up on the merit listing and they were placed in the 80%, and maybe the parent would have applied to the school to get a 20% selection. When that principal would have come in to choose their 20%, they would not have seen the student's name. So therefore, I'm trying to clear up where you say you are thinking if the 20% overrides the 80%. Once you have been selected on the 80%, you are not available for a 20% selection for that particular school.
Thank you, Ms. Begelu, Director Acting, Division of Educational Research and Evaluation. Can parents access the results on the S.E.A portal more than once or only one time? And if so, how long will the results be available on that portal?
Thank you for the question. The results will be made available indefinitely as long as the person has access to those 3 credentials we referred to previously. So from now until such as the time that the portal is open, you can access it.
And Mr. Khan, how can parents seek assistance when they are trying to access the online results and they are having difficulties?
If the parents are having any difficulties, they can reach out to the email address, the seaonline.help@moe.gov.tt for all inquiries.
Thank you very much. Now, parents are concerned about registration fees asked by secondary schools. Are these mandatory, and can a child be denied a placement if they cannot pay such a fee?
Registration fees are not mandatory. In fact, it's the ministry policy that schools do not charge parents a registration fee for any. In fact, a child cannot be denied access at any of our secondary schools because of the non-payment of a registration fee. So according to ministry's policy, no school should be charging a child or a parent a registration fee for the registration process.
Thank you very much, Mr. Metivier, for your response. Can the multiple birth criteria for placement be re-explained for our parents? And when you say first part of the multiple birth, what do you mean by that? And is the part of the twin with the higher placement?
Okay, so we do have candidates who are part of multiple birth. However, if we do have mixed genders, then the criteria cannot be applied. If we have candidates of the same gender, now what happens, and is in the question that the parent would have asked, right? It's the child with the higher placement. So which part of the twin or the triplet, wherever that higher scoring part of the twin or triplet is placed, once the schools selected are in the same order, then the second part of the twin or the triplet, they are also placed in the same school. Now, there may be mixed gender schools, and we may have a boy-girl twin. And what happens in those instances is that there are candidates, they are allowed to be placed in the same school once they also have the same mixed gender. Now, there is one instance where the multiple birth criteria cannot be performed. And there is an instance where one part of the multiple birth would have scored less than 30%. And given the criteria for a resit candidate that if they are less than 13 years of age by August 31st of this year, they will have to resit the examination next year. We did indicate that it is automatic. So therefore, that is one instance where the other part of the multiple birth will not be placed with the first highest scoring candidate.
Parents, please note that you can post your questions, your issues in the various chat platforms for reviewing. Now, seeking the results, this will be sought at S.E.A results at moe.gov.tt. That will be shown a little later in the presentation. Seeking issues such as technical issues, seeking assistance, we do have a dedicated email, seaonline.help@moe.gov.tt. Those will be placed in the chat for you. What is a sense of relief that parents can get if they are not given a transfer on time? What should they do?
In response to the question, the transfer process may continue after school has reopened, but in this instance, it means that the student has to take up the assignment at the particular school he or she was placed at until correspondence is received from the Ministry of Education regarding either the success of that application or, in some cases, whether or not the application can be honored. So once again, if a response is not had by the time school reopens, the child has to attend the school he is or she is assigned to until correspondence is received from the Ministry of Education indicating whether the application was successful or unsuccessful.
What support is available to help children transition to secondary school, from primary to secondary school?
All right. That's a good question. Um, in every primary school had parent sessions to assist the children in transition, both with the children and with the students and the parents. If all else fails, a child is having difficulty with transitioning, they are free to contact student support services. There will be guidance officers available, social workers available that could assist in the process. Additionally, of course, a parent can feel free to reach out to get professional help privately, but student support services are available both at the primary and the secondary school level, so they can access either one.
Thank you, participants, for your. We have now come to the end of the Q&A segment. As we near the end of this webinar, we'd love to hear your feedback. Please click the link provided in the Microsoft Teams chat and in the Facebook Live QR code displayed on the screen to complete the evaluation. Extremely valuable and will help guide future education initiatives. To bring us closing remarks, please join me in welcoming Mrs. Simone Williams, Permanent Secretary Acting, here at the Ministry of Education.
As we bring this session to a formal close, it is important to reflect on the core pathways we have explored together. The actionable guidance shared today provides a clear blueprint for navigating the upcoming weeks with confidence and clarity. From understanding the step process of accessing the placement data online to implementing immediate practical methods to lower stress levels in the home, you are now equipped with these essential tools to manage this period of adjustment smoothly. We remind our parents and guardians that your active supportive presence is the absolute cornerstone of a successful transition for your child. The information you learned today regarding emotional reassurance and structural school readiness is meant to be put into daily practice by focusing on your child's unique efforts, validating their feelings, and maintaining a calm, positive outlook. You create the stable environment that they need to look forward to the secondary school curriculum and environment with genuine excitement. Furthermore, it is vital to remember that the release of the results is simply a bridge to a wider, more diverse learning experience. While it is completely natural to look closely at the assigned secondary school, the real focus must now shift towards preparing our children for the daily structural changes they will face, such as managing a larger timetable, balancing multiple subject teachers, and adapting to a new peer group. By talking through these adjustments openly as a family, you demystify the secondary school layout and replace situational anxiety with a shared sense of readiness. As parents, your role shifts from monitoring primary school routines to coaching our young teenagers towards healthy independence. The strategies discussed tonight regarding digital access, emotional resilience, and steady communication are your baseline for creating a supportive environment at home. Your steady encouragement acts as the strongest foundation, ensuring that your children do not view this shift with fear, but rather as an open door to discover their true strengths and potential. The insights gained today during this webinar should serve as your continuous roadmap as the new academic term approaches. We challenge every educator, school leader, and parent to carry these strategies forward, working in total partnership to ensure our transitioning youth step into their new classrooms with resilience, character, and peace of mind. Thank you for your focused engagement, and do have a pleasant and peaceful evening.
Let me take this opportunity to thank Mrs. Simone Williams, Permanent Secretary Acting, for the closing remarks, and to extend special thanks to our presenters, Mrs. Kamini Begelu, Mr. Chris Mativer, Mr. Kenny Edwin, Mr. Andy Matamora, and Mr. Ansari Khan for their expertise and for guiding us through today's webinar, Beyond the Sea. Just a few reminders in case you missed it. Please be reminded that the S.E.A results 2026 will be released tomorrow, Thursday, 2nd July 2026 at 11 p.m. and the S.E.A results portal can be accessed by visiting S.E.A results at moe.gov.tt or by typing S.E.A results 2026 into the search browser to find the S.E.A portal. It is a quick and easy process. If you are experiencing any technical issues while trying to access your child's S.E.A results, please send an email to seaonline.help@moe.gov.tt for technical assistance and a response will be sent to you. The Ministry of Education has put together some frequently asked questions for you to review in the form of an informational booklet. It can be easily accessed on the ministry's website. Simply visit searesults.moe.gov.tt to locate the SEA information booklet. We urge all parents to access this booklet. For all non-technical issues, you can reach out to your child's primary school principal on Friday, 3rd July, or visit the education district nearest to you. Also be reminded that a recording of this video, along with a helpful step-by-step guide, can be accessed on the Ministry of Education's official social media platforms. For your ease of access, you can also visit the website at moe.gov.tt for more information and updates. Please note that our next webinar is scheduled for Monday, 6th July 2026, where we will discuss the continuous assessment component. We encourage all parents and guardians, especially those of standards 2 and 3, to attend this informational session to share your questions, concerns, and feedback. On behalf of the Ministry of Education, thank you for your time, your passion, and your continued dedication to our nation's children. All the best to each student receiving S.E.A results tomorrow. This session has now formally concluded.